Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the greatest rock and roll stories in the universe, all from the fans' perspective. It's Rock Stories with the Brummster. Now, here's the host of the show, my rockin' daddy, the Brummster.
Hey, thank you so much to my little protege there. What's up, Brummster? Rocking you. Normally, I get to rock you at rockradio559.com, where I'm able to rock the rock on that Live 365 platform that has the licensing handled. So here we're on the podcast, though, in another universe. And in this universe, we have a lot of different extra powers, and here we don't rock the rock. There you can check us out, rockradio559.com. Me specifically, the Brummster, hard drive at 5 every single Friday, 5 to 7 p.m. My good friend Hopper, rocking 4 to 5 every Friday with his great show, Good Times, Great Oldies. I mean, we have a lot of fun, and we rock the rock there where the licensing is happening and stuff. But here, Rock Stories with the Brummster, here, it's all from your perspective, the fans' perspective, and we talk the rock here. And it's all about those behind-the-scenes rock and roll stories that you want to know about, right? You want to know what's going on. So I will have fans in the studio, if you will, virtually, on a regular basis here with Rock Stories with the Brummster. Check us out on YouTube as well, Rock Stories with the Brummster. I'll have different fans in from different bands and artists and concerts and great memories and experiences. You're going to hear the stories all right here. It's like getting in a time machine. It's Rock Stories with the Brummster. And this is our debut episode number 1 of our podcast. And I've got a mentor of mine in the radio business. This guy is phenomenal. He has run the gamut in the different formats that he specialized in throughout his broadcast and radio career. We'll talk to him in just a moment. His name is Kent Hopper. He was my boss, program director, but when I came in, first radio station ever, I did overnights, and so I got to be under his tutelage in the beginning days, and he got to tell me and reward me by saying, "You're weird. You're really weird, so I think you're going to make it in radio." But he ended up going on doing a classic rock station and then being ops manager and program director for a fantastic South Valley balance to the North Valley here in the San Joaquin Valley with a news station in Porterville, one of the first flagship stations, K-Tip, in broadcasting history that was on Time Magazine's cover years ago, one of the first successful stations when radio was king, and he brought that back here in the South Valley. This guy's amazing, and he's still doing a great job with local news, specializing in that on his podcast. And then he rocks the Good Times and Great Oldies every Friday, 4 to 5 Pacific Standard Time at rockradio559.com. Our buddy Brian Keith Martinez, an amazing station. Go check it out there. So he's on the program today. Without further ado, we got to get to the rock and roll stories with the Brummster. That's why you're here. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Kent Hopper, my good friend, welcome to the program. Are you there, sir?
I am here, brother. Thank you so much for having me on. Rock Stories of those who rock and roll. I love that, man. Sounds like a great show you've got planned here, and I'm happy to be a part of that, man. And after you introduced me, I thought, damn, it must be nice to be me. I mean, I don't know. I didn't deserve all of that, but thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
And you're not even dead yet, right? That means you're really loved, you know? So the behind the scenes factor for our audience right now. Thanks for joining us here, Rock Stories with the Brummster. We really appreciate you joining us here for our first flagship episode with Kent Hopper, a radio legend. And Kent, talk a little bit to our audience about, just introduce yourself as far as your background. The stories that you're going to tell behind the scenes come from our radio background, some behind the scenes stuff that people don't generally get to see from the audience's perspective. And so we're going to go into that today. But your pedigree as far as, how you got access to those behind the scenes moments was you're a professional broadcaster. How did you get into radio? Ken, introduce yourself to the audience. Thanks for being on the show.
You bet. Happy to do it, man. And with my story, which is pretty well known in the 559, little plug. Anyway, I went to Pacific College, and then I went to Los Angeles, and I knew back in high school that I wanted to be a broadcaster. And so I went to school in L.A., at the Don Martin School of Radio and Television Arts and Sciences, and got my degree there, and got my first class license, and then went to work. So basically, in school prior to that, Brummster, I also did a lot of music and stuff in high school and in college as well, music theory. But most of all, I started playing music myself, and that's how I really got the love of music, because that's really what it's all about. And I love broadcasting in general. So that's bringing it full circle. I did a lot of that, got started, did a lot of overnights, various stations. And then I was very, very lucky. I got to settle down quite a bit in most of my places that I've worked. Visalia, 15 years, and then in the Porterville, Visalia area for the last 20 years, and various places before that. But with that being said, if it's okay with you, I can tell you about some of the things. Well, first of all, let me say, it's easy to get backstage when you're asked to. You're the station that's throwing the concert or is promoting the concert that you're going to see. So, boy, I have been fortunate enough to be a part of several of those, and just a few off the top of my head. Sammy Hagar was probably my favorite as far as concerts go. So that's really where we are. Do you want me to jump in there?
I love the Red Rocker, man. Red Rocker opened up. I'll tell this story later on down the road where I'm tall, right, Hopper? I'm a big, huge, giant guy. Forgive me. There's this lady.
Yeah, me too.
We're at a Sammy Hagar concert, Hopper, and this lady behind me took a lime out of her frickin' margarita and threw it at my head because she wanted me to sit down. It was like totally ruined the vibe of the Red Rocker, but the Red Rocker still kept playing. He comes out. Let's start there. Yes, the Red Rocker on your tale of behind the scenes rock stories with Ken Topper today, rocking with the Brummster. Sammy Hagar, yes, please.
Well, and speaking of telling people to sit down, and anybody that knows me knows I'm under 5 foot. So when that happens, I have to stand on a chair so I can see the dang concert, So that's just the leverage of it, right? You're up here and I'm way down here, but yet we're good buds, and I love that, man. All right, so Sammy Hagar to me was one of the best concerts I'd ever been to. And I think it was the late 90s for the Marching to Mars tour, I think it was. So Sammy Hagar, that's what they call it, Marching to Mars for the album. And he came to the city of Visalia. I was lucky enough to enjoy that concert. From the outside, I can tell you, we talked about the margaritas a little bit. You did, and probably we'll talk more. But I think it was like the first 5 or 6 rows, they served margaritas to everybody that was there until they ran out anyway. So I thought that was very, very cool. From backstage, when I got a chance to go back there and chat with him, it was really, really cool. He was like everyday folks. He leaned on me, actually. This is kind of cool. He leaned on my arm and he goes, "Man, I'm glad you're here. I really needed to lean on something, and everybody else has got everything else shaking." So, you got the Red Rocker leaning on my shoulder, so he don't. And I said, "Well, I'm glad I'm good for something here. Sammy?"
Lean on me.
Exactly. Well, I can't drive 55, neither can he. But anyway, and that's one that I got, the autograph backstage and got to talk to him. The show itself, by the way, he was a great guy. He wasn't put on, he just rocked it. And from being a fan standpoint, that man just knows how to work the audience. And I think a lot of these guys do, but in their own a certain way, their own special way.
Right.
Sammy rocked it, and they just had a lot of fun. He rocked my kind of music, and I have such a wide genre of favorites. So, but that was one of the favorites I've been to. You were there, right?
No, I missed Marching to Mars, but I heard it was amazing because he's one of the most music. People don't know that about Sammy. He wasn't going to join Van Halen, and then Eddie got him to play just a jam session, and he walked out of there going, "Those dudes are the most musical people I've ever met in my entire life. I'm quitting my solo career to join Van Halen. Thank you." So Sammy knows he knows his shit, right, Hopper?
You know it, brother. You know it. He knows his stuff, and not only that, but when we were on stage, here's kind of a cool. At the end of the show, when he started with Marching to Mars, that whole show thing at the end, we were in the what are they called, the wings, watching him from the stage, sides of the stage, the wings, and he just waved us on. He said, "Come on up here." So we went out there first, and then he invited other folks up, but we were out there first, the radio station guys. A friend of mine by the name of Eddie Cruz was there as well, and we went on stage, and the funny thing about it was he was giving everybody hugs, and he goes, "I hope this doesn't hurt my back. I'm going to hug you." I kid you not, this is the second time now, because he had to bend over to hug me because I'm a short guy. But it was so much fun, and I got a couple of shots and pictures of him. I had a couple of shots too, but that's another story, another show. But it was really, really cool. And I can tell you this: when it was timed, his people, his entourage, were waving us, telling us, "Okay, come off now, right?" So my buddy Eddie Cruz is hanging on to Sammy, and he wouldn't let go. Man, he kept looking at me, pointing at. He goes, "This is Sammy Hagar. This is Sammy." And I know, man, but the show must go on. And eventually he let go, and it was a great show. And afterwards we got to talk some more and take some pictures and stuff. But, brother, that was one of my favorites of all time. I can tell you, my own personal take on this is everybody thinks, well, not everybody, but a lot of people think I was crazy because I enjoyed Van Halen more with Sammy Hagar than I did with David Lee Roth. And that says a lot because David Lee Roth was the showman, Right. But I did enjoy Sammy Hagar's music. Anyway, that's my little story about Sammy right now.
And it's not David Lee Roth, folks.
Oh, no, absolutely not. David Lee is very talented.
Yeah, it's just, if you had to prefer, a ham sandwich or a chicken sandwich, they're both delicious sandwiches, but you prefer one over the other. And I'm like you, I prefer the Sammy Hagar, Van Halen.
Van Hagar.
Dude, Red Rocker. Great behind the scenes stories. That's what this podcast is all about. Welcome to the program, folks. Rock Stories with the Brummster and our debut program today with our special guest, one of my radio mentors, Mr. Kent Hopper. Hopper in the morning. I think you changed your name legally. First name Hopper, middle name in the last name Morning. Hey, it's good morning, Mr. Morning. No, thank you. Please call me Hopper.
Pretty much.
Yeah, you've got your name synonymous with mornings because in our original debut meeting one another, I did overnights at a soft rock station in Visalia, California, United States of America. Home of the burnt trees. They used to not be burned, but God bless the firefighters that are putting, doing their life on the line to help protect as much as possible, right? Well, you're here in the backyard of that beauty here in Visalia, California, as am I, and Central Valley, and I'm working overnights, and that's where I meet you. You're synonymous with mornings. Growing up as a kid, out there with my dad, hearing Hopper in the morning in his work truck. I mean, you've been doing mornings for quite a while. Being the morning guy. You've got a lot of other stories. I believe you mentioned something about Lou Gramm. Lou Gramm. Wow. Tell us a little bit more about that, if you don't mind.
Okay, this is going to piss off some Foreigner fans, but Foreigner's not Foreigner without Lou Gramm. That's just my take, everybody, right here. So just thought I'd throw that out. Lou Gramm was, to me, as a musician myself and as a singer, Lou Gramm was the epitome of it all. I mean, he just had that voice, man. He could hit any note, anytime, anywhere. And we got to see Lou Gramm with Foreigner. Again, this was in Visalia. I actually saw him a couple of times, but this show was cool because, once again, being Mr. In the Morning, I got to, go to that show and be a part of that. And when Foreigner played in Visalia, they just rocked it, man. I mean, my wife was not feeling well that night, and she goes, I just want to stay long enough. This is from out front now. I just want to stay long enough till I hear Jukebox Hero. I said, okay, that's fine. If you feel like we need to go, we'll go. But she goes, I ain't leaving until until I hear Jukebox Hero. I said, okay. Guess what the last song of the night was? Yeah, Jukebox Hero. So it was cool. One of my favorite tunes, and obviously her favorite, from Lou Gramm and Foreigner. Lou Gramm was one of those guys backstage. We got to go back there again, of course, being part of the sponsoring radio station. Got to go back and chat with Lou Gramm. He really was even more down to earth than Sammy Hagar was. And one of these days, I'll tell you about Tom Jones and the panties. But anyway, that's another show. Lou Gramm can sing anything. Got to sit there and watch him. He had some great background vocalists from his band members as well, and had some singers that were absolutely wonderful. Not a lot of backstage stuff from him, except he asked me, hey, aren't you going to have something to eat? Because they had a spread backstage for Lou Gramm and Foreigner. I can't tell you.
Talk about that, the spread, and we as DJs, like you said, they practically would bring us into their family because they treated us like celebrities almost, even though they were the celebrities.
They were the celebrities, but yeah, I think most of these guys, including Lou Gramm especially, felt just like that. You hit the nail on the head there, Brummster, because he was happy to have us there promoting them, even though they didn't really need us. It's Lou Gramm and Foreigner, for crying out loud. But he did. And so when we got back there, this is after the show now, they had a huge spread. And I mean, cold cuts, sandwiches, the little sandwiches, what do they call those? Finger foods, I guess, everywhere, up and down like a 12-foot table. And, of course, the brew was flowing. And I can tell you, Lou likes to have a drink or two. I couldn't tell you what he was drinking, but it wasn't brew. But anyway, he had a great time and was just a really kind guy. A rocker that knows how to treat people. I mean, because there are the stories, and someday I'll share some of that with you perhaps, but there are the stories of those that are prima donnas that don't give a rat's you-know-what about people, whether you're the sponsoring station or not.
Let's go into that. Why the hell not? That's also what this isn't all just about great good time feelies. This is also about the real shit that happens behind the scenes. That's why you are listening, right, folks? Rock Stories with the Brummster, original first episode, Mr. Kent Hopper, a radio pass on that badge, like Wayne's World style with your backstage pass badge. You just got so much access. Talk about the assholes that didn't give you the respect that we deserved as the promoting radio station.
Well, I don't know, Brummster. When you talk about naming names, I'm not big on naming names because that could come back and bite you in the ass, actually. I don't know. I thought that Paul Revere and the Raiders, if you want to go back, good times, great oldies. But Paul Revere and the Raiders, that was a show I saw, and I don't know, they were, let's just say they weren't quite as professional as I had hoped. Backstage, it was kind of, yeah, okay, I hear you. Get out of the way, little man. Get out of the way. And that's a quote. Get out of the way, little man. We're ready.
Are you serious? Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So I've said it now. But Paul Revere and the Raiders, hopefully they're not coming through town and listening.
Hey, were they in Oakland or L.A. at the time, the Raiders?
This was up north,
okay.
Oakland.
No affiliation with Al Davis at all. No affiliation. It's a different kind of Raiders, right?
Different kind of Raiders, man. But you're right. It was up north. I don't think it was actually in Oakland. It was down the road a little bit. But they weren't quite as nice as some of the stories we've been hearing. Because some of these guys can be asses, And I've had some of those rest his soul, Charlie Daniels was kind of like that a little bit, and I know that's going to piss some people off.
No, that surprises me because we always get this, super happy version that's on TV. And so interesting. And that's not anti-him. We're all human beings. We're not shitting on any one people. This is just the real stories of what happened from a fan's perspective. There's no judgment here. These are just real stories of what happened on Rock Stories with the Brummster. Kent Hopper, our guest today. Charlie Daniels, really interesting. That surprises me.
Brummster, though, these, I try to look at it like this. They are who they are for a reason, and I also realize that perhaps they've had a tough flight getting here, getting there, on a bus, off a bus. So I try to be understanding of some of those things, but I don't think you go out in this world and put people down and shove your weight around, if you will, especially to those that promote your music like we do in this business that we're in. But from a fan standpoint, loved him, loved Lou Gramm, and I love Sammy Hagar. All of those were great. Can I tell you one more real quick?
Ooh, we actually have no time limit, so I actually listed all of the music that you had mentioned in your message to me earlier to get ready for the show prep, and I'm down with talking, running the gamut. This is going to be an amazing first episode with behind-the-scenes stuff here with Kent Hopper, Rock Stories with the Brummster, man. Thanks for being here, Hop. I appreciate it. Please continue, yes.
Okay, I've got a few more minutes, so I do want to get in one or two more. One of the ones that I really loved, you've heard probably this story over and over about Eddie Money. You want to talk about down to earth. This brother was just down to earth. We were hanging out backstage, and I believe this was in the Valley here. I can't remember what city it was right now. But anyway, Eddie Money, we were waiting for him to arrive, and we were waiting for a big bus to pull in with entourage. And here comes Eddie in a black Yukon. Kind of like the one the president drives, rides around it. But still wasn't a big jet or a big bus, that type of thing. But he gets out, and we're backstage again. And, I'm a fan, but at the same time, it's hard for me to not share these stories, But Eddie Money, talk about casual, he was just down to earth. He had his shirt was kind of half open, and like his hair was messed up, like I just got here, and I'm tired. But he got out, and he goes, "Well, you must be Hopper." I swear to Buddha, man. He got out and he goes, "You must be Hopper." I guess somebody fills him in on I be looking for that short guy because I was supposed to greet him backstage. But anyway, Eddie Money rocked that place that night from a fan standpoint. If you don't do the Eddie Money spin, then you haven't seen Eddie Money because that was what he was famous for. And Eddie, of course, having been a police officer prior to that and then turned into the music scene, Eddie Money was very, very cool. We're standing there anyway, backstage, and he goes, hey, Hop. He said Hopper, actually. "Hey, Hopper, you got a cigarette for the money, man?" One of my favorite stories because you got a cigarette for the money, man. He said it just like that with his shades kind of half off his face. He wasn't crocked or anything. He was just tired looking, And after I said, and at the time, I hate to tell you this, but I was smoking. And I said, "You bet, brother, you bet." And I got one out and handed it to him and lit his cigarette. And he goes, "Man, I really appreciate you." So that was kind of my story with him. And he put on one heck of a show. He obviously got freshened up and did his spin on the stage several times. What a real guy, a real individual.
Right.
He was not one of those bad ass types, but he was great, man.
He was real people, right?
Real people.
The money man. I love it. You got to feel comfortable in your own skin to say shit like that. Got a cigarette for the money man, Hopper? You got to be a cool dude to say that.
Well, you know what? I told that story to just about everybody in the world, so now I have, for sure. Yeah.
Anyway. Did you mention that you had a Lynyrd Skynrd experience, Hopper?
Yeah. I was really stoked to see Lynyrd Skynrd, and this was in Visalia back in the day. I even had a black, and I wasn't as heavy then either, so I looked pretty decent for a short little bastard. But anyway, I had a black trench coat, and I actually, my wife sewed letters on the back of it, Lynyrd Skynrd, up and down. And so I went on stage, because again, radio broadcasting has been good to me for this type of thing, but I went on stage prior to introducing them, and I was talking, hey, thanks for being here, thanks for listening to Hopper in the Morning and all that stuff that we do. And then I just turned around. The curtain was closed, and I turned around because it was on the back, and I opened it up wide so you could see it, and the crowd went nuts. It was awesome. I didn't think that was going to happen. I went, you know who's coming up, don't you? And I turned around and opened up my my black jacket, and you could see Lynyrd Skynrd vertically on the back of my jacket. So, and the spotlight was right on it, and the crowd went nuts, and I love that, man. So that was kind of funny. I didn't get a chance to speak with many of Lynyrd Skynrd, of the musicians, except when they did come by the radio station. And went upstairs, and we had a chance to chat with them and sit around a table. All good guys, all basic Southerners, if you will, Southern rock and roll, obviously. And had a great time meeting them. Couldn't tell you much more about Skynrd other than they rocked the house with every popular song everybody wanted to hear, including all of your favorites. So, yeah, very, very cool. Lynyrd Skynrd was great, brother. Did you ever get a chance to see them?
I did. I saw Skynrd in Visalia, and I blew out an eardrum. I was in the front row, during Freebird.
Oh my God.
Yeah. You remember seeing me out there, the big, giant, tall guy standing out of the crowd. No, I'm telling you what, man, one of the things I remember the moment where you revealed on your jacket who was coming up next, and the crowd did go nuts. I was at that concert. And one of the cool things I remember about how radio used to be, and we're bringing it back, Hopper 4 p.m., and me 5 to 7 every single Friday on rockradio559.com, where we don't just talk the rock, we rock the rock, because we have the music licensing on the 365 platform there with Brian Keith Martinez. So thank you so much, Brian, for that. But we're bringing the personality back to radio. But what happened is deregulation, and I didn't think it was going to be a problem at the time, but it really has been. It's changed radio. The automation, they kicked out all the DJs. I remember being one of the DJs at a station loading all the songs that were going to replace me. It's amazing how they've changed it. So you have one or two people running 8 stations now, and voices and it's not real. And so you miss the celebrity of it. But back in the day, do you remember how, not because of our egos, it was just great radio because the personality was infused in it. And I think the artists that you talked about today that you met backstage here on Rock Stories with the Brummster, Ken Hopper with us right now, those were all experiences that happened, that crowd going wild when you revealed that Skynrd was coming up next on stage on your jacket was because you were a celebrity. Radio made us celebrities back then, and those personalities made the audiences love radio. I think radio really screwed up. And right? I mean, juxtaposed to how it used to be versus how it is now on FM.
Yeah. And money has a lot to do with everything, doesn't it? So, but yeah, they did that, and it's not as much fun. So when you're listening to those, a lot of those people on other stations, which you shouldn't be doing, because rockradio559.com is here. But anyway, a lot of it you're hearing is just somebody from another station doing what they call voice tracking, going in, sit there going, here is, that was, here is, that was, back and forth, and then they put it into a machine. But you're right, Brummster, man. We had interaction with the people. We did remotes and went out live, and we had our own little fan base, We were nothing like these rock stars, obviously, but we had our own little fan base of people, and they would come out, and a guy that used to come out to all of our remotes, we called him the beer man, because every time he came, he brought me a 12-pack of Corona. And he would no matter where we were, and I went, here comes the beer man, he would slide it under the table underneath our pictures or whatever out front. And it was cool. But there's a lot more of those kind of stories. But this is about rock and roll, and I appreciate you letting me be on today, brother. I do.
Hey, we didn't get rich, money-wise doing radio. We did it because we love it, and we still do it today. at Brian Martinez's station, like Hopper mentioned. Good times, great oldies. Before you go real quick, thanks for sharing your rock stories with the Brummster today, Hopper, on our debut episode. It was very rich, and I'm very thankful to have you in my life. Hey, do me a favor. Just remind our audience where they can catch up with you with your awesome podcast, Hopper in the Morning, also as well at the Hop, Good Times, Great Oldies. Talk a little bit about that and where folks can catch up with the Hop.
Well, the last radio station I worked for was sold after being there 20 years building a news talk station, because at that point I felt like it was time to kick back a little bit, and I was getting more interested in news and things like that, which I'd done off and on throughout the years. But anyway, after that happened, I decided, you know what? I've got a family, and this moving around stuff had to come to an end. So I decided to go online and do my podcast. So that's a quick background on how it started. But then we started doing what we did on the radio at that time was news and information. A lot of Hopper chats, as we call them, are now on talktohopper.com, TalkTohopper.com. It's our own website, and you can see everything about Hopper in the Morning. There's a nice little story. It says about Hopper. It tells you a little bit of background about my life and what I've done over the years. So that's on there if you really want to check that out. And then, of course, we do that Monday through Thursday, a different guest every day. So it keeps me on my toes, brother, having a different guest every day. And we try to get a few sponsors. We're not asking for a ton of money on our show, but we do ask people to join us so we can keep going. And then the other part of my life is on Fridays, which I love to, because you just never get that out of your blood, do you? Man, you know that. I know that. Brian Keith Martinez knows it too. So, and that, of course, is at The Hop. The thing about that is that rockradio559.com, and as the Brummster said, 4 to 5 every Friday. And that is my love right there, getting to play a lot of the real oldies. And I get to hear your oldies, basic classic rock, and then I get to hear the weekends and all, actually 365 24/7 at rockradio559.com.
And
that's a little bit about me.
And there's so much special programming. I feel like a PBS announcer. If you'd like to send in your pledge and your personal donation, it's going to come to that, folks. We're starving artists, as my mother used to say, these DJs. No, we do it for the love of it, and I love you, brother. Thank you for being on my debut episode of Rock Stories with the Brummster. Kent Hopper, Hopper in the Morning. Mr. Morning, thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure, brother. Thank you for having me. And anytime I can do anything for you, just let me know, okay?
You rock. Hang on the line for our engineers just a moment. Mr. In the Morning right there. Taught me what a microphone is, man. Thank you. Thanks for joining us, our debut episode of the podcast, and it's a lot of fun to have you here. Join me if you want to hear me rock the rock, not just talk the talk, not just the stories, but also the rock and roll, where we cover the licensing on our Live 365 radio platform at rockradio559.com. I'm on every Friday, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m., your drive home to kick off your weekend. Hard Drive at 5 with me, the Brummster. And be checking up next, I believe I have Mr. Joe Silvera from the fans' perspective, stories, rock stories with the Brummster, bringing the fans on for you to hear their perspective and their stories about their interactions with their favorite bands, concerts, artists, lots of great stuff. Even some great radio friends who have those behind the scenes stories right here. Rock Stories with the Brummster. We've got more coming up next. Stay tuned.